Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Deductionist Podcast. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for stopping by. Got a study in personality, to paraphrase the title of a Sherlock Holmes novel this evening. We're trying something new on the Instagram view. So we're live over there at the minute. So which means if you're not following us over there, you can do so to join in on these lives when they go out. Obviously, if you don't want to, then don't. I'm not going to make it. The article was linked in the story itself, and as a result, that's where the content is that you can see, and that was the kind of the springboard for for the idea that we're going to be looking at today. It's one of those things where there is, or rather, there appears to have been an active search as part of the reading people community or but the deductive community or whatever it is, to try and find ways and means of um better understanding humans through observation, right, and through deduction and through critical thinking. These are the big prime movers of the discussion, albeit maybe somewhat slightly boring as titles, arguably a little sexless in parts. But here it is, and I've taught the big five. Um, I've taught the big five a few times, and it's a robust model, but it does have its own flaws because of the container that it tries to hold, and we're going to get into it today, right? So if you want to look at the article, it will be in the description for when this goes out live, edited tomorrow, but it's in the Instagram story if you want to find it there already. But if you didn't know, the big five is well, it's something that emerged in mid 20th century. It was through lexical studies of language and trait clustering, um, solidified with psychometrics in the 80s. I think it became the backbone of what we know as modern personality psychology in those particular groups, right? The five dimensions of it are openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, right? So this is where we get the ocean name from. I suppose we can also call it canoe if you want. It doesn't really matter so long as you get the big five principles there. And it rather exists as one of the most researched personality frameworks that there are, right? One of. Now, that again presents a certain position here for a bias of sorts, in that it's the most researched, therefore it is the most credible. No, like all things, it just depends on how it's used and when it's used and for what reason and purpose it's used for, right? Yes, it's supported by decades of factor analysis across cultures. Critics have long noted that they oversimplify human complexity, right? How are you going to sum up all people into a combination of just five things? That's the argument that's on the table. And for me, at least one of the main problems is that it doesn't infinitely keep iterating. It tries to establish that there is an ocean property to one person in one particular situation, and that goes through their life ad nauseum or ad hominem. What? No, ad hominem's a bias, isn't it? But when you look at it, Holmes himself, he often attempted to categorize people quickly, referencing bankers as cautious, soldiers as orderly, artists as imaginative. Right? In effect, he was running his own crude version of trait categorization. The change being that if somebody didn't conform to that, he wouldn't try and cram them back into a box. It evolved with the observations that he was making. Right? In Holmes's London, such categories might have helped him predict someone's honesty in business, their likelihood of violence, and their ability to keep secrets. Today, the big five is used in hiring, in coaching, in online algorithms, in interviews, right? But as we'll see, this new research shows it may miss um, hidden forces. I'm trying to think of the most um, dramatic and Holmesian ways of phrasing these types of things. May have used hidden forces beneath those five. The attempt for the neat little boxes. But it does raise a new challenge, right? Challenges to the big five have emerged since its inception, right? Most critics argue it leaves out morality, it leaves out honesty, it leaves out humility. But until now, it was still the reigning champion, the Rocky Balboa of personality frameworks, if you will, right? Recent computational methods, like taxonomic graph analysis, they are they are uncovering dimensions beyond the big five, right? It's suggesting that our map of personality has blank spaces. Shocking, right? Holmes thrived by questioning accepted truths. He'd scoff at the idea that five traits could define all of humanity. He'd be the first to point out the anomaly, as in the proverbial dog that didn't bark, right? In fact, it's no different to how people lean on star signs as all-encompassing categories. You're a Gemini, so you must be indecisive, or you're a Scorpio, so you must be passionate. But what about the countless Geminis who are decisive? What about the Scorpios that are quiet and restrained? Even the stars themselves disprove the notion of it with precession and the journey of movement around the planets. I mean, Neil deGrasse Tyson should really cover that. It's not really relevant here. It was just something that popped up. Those constellations are illusions, patterns made by our brains, not forces shaping our behavior. Holmes would have smirked at the same logic. Humans crave neat categories, even when reality is infinitely messier. Right? One of my particular ones that I have a bugbear with, and this is fully my bugbear, fully my bias, is the notion of um, the masculine and the feminine and being in your masculine or feminine body. Hello, hustler. Not the magazine. That's not the full title of the name on YouTube. Good day to you, and blessings to you as well. Um, what if you've ever heard the language of like the modern takes of being in your masculine or your feminine body, it reduces people to archetypes. Now those frameworks themselves can be useful metaphors, and I'm not shitting all over Jung, but they often become vehicles for not actually listening to what someone wants or how they behave. And in a number of situations, they often attempt to reinforce these archaic gender roles where feminine is expected to be nurturing and submissive, and masculine means assertive and dominant. Reality doesn't play by those categories. Right? The science is clear. Traits exist across a spectrum. And while, there's certain hormones and tendencies can shape or influence behavior, they don't dictate it by any sense, by any stress, or of any kind of fixed sense. Right? Cross-cultural research shows variation in some cultures. Nurturing is expected of men as much as women, and assertiveness can be rewarded in women as much as men. right? These kind of gendered personality labels tell us more about social roles than any kind of biological truth. Back then, as in, the Victorian categories, Holmes would never assume a client's honesty or deceit based on some kind of social category. He judged by evidence. I mean, at the time, and in the stories, it was handwriting and shoes and inconsistencies. But what we take from it is the judgment by evidence, not by whether they fit the small box that apparently contains a larger piece of information. Um, oh, here we go. How long have I been studying in my branch of study? Um, okay, couple of questions. Let's handle them quickly then. My branch of study has been ongoing for about 25 years. Yeah. And it's something that I've never missed a day in. Right? It's something that I've never missed a day in. And if you're a chronic chess player, I play chess, but cards on the table, my chess is shit. My chess is terrible. Um, I have a kind of a mantra or a working way that I'm kind of improving is I improve by playing. So I will lose many more than I will ever get close to winning or drawing or stalemating. But that's how I prefer to learn. Right? I mean, I'll still read and take courses and all this type of thing, but it's putting it to practical use the whole time, much like this. Um, anyway, back to the previous modern deduction. It requires refusing lazy labels, whether it's the big five or horoscopes or anything that exists in between. Right? Categories are only as good as their ability to help us observe reality. The real skill is noticing the data that's in front of you, letting it speak instead of trying to force it into some kind of pre-packaged box just to make it easier to manage, right? And don't get me wrong, I have my own models that are 5 steps of this, 7 steps of this, 3 steps of this, 12 steps of this, but they are iterative. They keep rolling out and rolling and changing and constantly going around as new data comes in, new situations take place, new contexts change, new information, new people. The whole thing is about constantly keeping it going. What the deuce was that? Um, there you go, live editing on the stream. Boom. Well, I don't know about being very smart and intelligent, Mr. Hustler. I think I think what it is I'm passionate about my own little box of study. That's it. Um, Holmes back then would have noticed where people deviated from the common archetypes, like a gentleman with soldierly posture, but a gambler's impulsivity. Right? It's taking the pieces from everywhere, and this is why I think only an opinion, bear in mind. This is why I think that the Big Five has some things to say about it because it puts the elements together to try and make up an iterative picture, but it keeps that same picture going. Like the same person will be neurotic in all circumstances, or the same person will be the same amount of openness in all circumstances. Like most things, it is it is contingent on um on the stigma on the start of it, right? Psychologists, recruiters, even AI systems, they have to recognize that the old models may blind us to subtler traits that actually drive behavior. Thank you. I am passionate about it. We got some comments coming in from YouTube, Instagram. So these are the things that I'm talking to randomly. Now, I said something earlier that you may or may not have heard about, right? Taxonomic graph analysis. Early personality research relied on surveys factor analysis, these types of things. Graph analysis was the leap forward. It was mapping traits as networks rather than independent buckets, right? The taxonomic part of it looks at how traits cluster and how they connect, identifying I think they called it nodes and hubs in personality structure. It was less about fitting data into 5 bins, but it was more about discovering the hidden relationships between, right? What I would call the designs of these elements in specific situation, right? This is Holmes's crime board method, the red string connecting suspects and motives and evidence until the pattern reveals itself. A little like that image of Charlie Day. um, I don't know if it was from It's Always Sunny, but it's definitely Charlie Day doing the neurotic gif himself when he's got all of the maps and things on the walls behind him. Holmes would draw such maps mentally, tracing how tobacco ash linked to a suspect's profession, which linked to their motive, which, these types of things. Psychologists would use computational models in the same way, right? Revealing that conscientiousness might overlap with curiosity, or that emotional stability links with empathy, right? Creating composite forces within the Big Five itself, which then led to the discovery of meta traits. Researchers have previously hinted at higher order factors above the Big Five, like stability, which is uh, um, emotional control plus conscientiousness, and plasticity, which is openness and extroversion. This study from Neuroscience News, it strengthens that case. And in interesting book on a similar topic, looking at emotional equations, Chip Conley, great book, great book. Meta traits, if you don't know, they are clusters of clusters, much in the same way that metacognition is thinking about thinking. Broad tendencies that shape how the 5 traits manifest. They show that behavior isn't linear. Like one of the phrases that we like over here is behavior is not binary, right? It's interwoven. Holmes was a master of meta traits. He didn't just see conscientiousness or openness. He noticed how precision combined with curiosity produced a competent scientist, or how rigidity plus paranoia produced a dangerous fanatic. Holmes might have used what we call meta traits to assess whether a client was trustworthy, right? If someone who was um, uh, highly agreeable but unstable emotionally, it might indicate that they then would buckle under pressure. Meta traits could improve hiring decisions, leadership profiling, or security screening, to use an ambiguous term, right? It looks beyond surface qualities to the deeper composites driving behavior. Psychology itself was often progressed by making the invisible visible. Freud with the unconscious, Eysenck with dimensions of temperament. I mean, it's the research that continues that tradition. Hidden trait structures function like um, fingerprints, unique combinations of multiple factors shaping how a person acts in a context. Holmes constantly picked up on clues behind clues, the faint smell of varnish on the sleeve suggesting not just painting, but hurried repair work or financial strain. That seemed to be the go-to. Right? The hidden clues, they allow Holmes and indeed ourselves, if we adopt this kind of thinking, to see motive or opportunity that is invisible to others. Hidden traits help modern deductionists, psychologists, and all other kind of gists and investigators anticipate how someone might behave in stress, in negotiation, or deception, right? It's crucial in law enforcement. I speak from experience, business, dating, right? Personality models have long been used in practical settings, military recruitment, therapy, beyond. But most of them, the big five included, are are really too crude if they're not used in combination or not used with the awareness of supporting other things or the iterative process or right. This is why humans crave these neat little boxes, because it makes something comprehensive and massive a little bit more digestible. Oh, it's only five things, but it's five things at the risk of of more accurate or relevant or pertinent or significant or more clear data that's coming in. Right? With Richard trait maps, practitioners might be a best word. You are working in your own particular discipline. You are you're a practitioner. I'm going to stick with it. Practitioners can predict not only job fit or comportment or motivation or resilience and adaptability and collaboration styles. I mean, it just keeps going. Oh, another one in. Oh my word. Mass perception. Good day, Ben. I've been watching your content for over a decade. Keep up the good work. Wow. Oh, that's cool. Thank you. I appreciate you for saying that. I appreciate you for sticking around this kind of stuff for a decade. Holy shit. Fair play. You've had to suffer through a lot of bad jokes over the time then. Good luck to you. um Holmesian deductions, they weren't demic, right? They were applied to crime, justice, survival. All he really wanted was just usable knowledge. Holmes might choose whether to trust a witness based on their composure, their consistency, and their underlying temperament. Today, businesses, educators, and investigators can similarly assess the hidden composites that predict not just who someone is, but how they will act when it matters most. And that's key. Science advances when it breaks frameworks, it moving from four humors to three temperaments to five traits, and now networks. This is why the more I exist in this field of investigation and and private security and these types of things, the more I am becoming, I don't know, enraptured. Is that a fancy enough word? with with critical thinking as the ultimate utilitarian skill, because that's how you make sense of everything that you see. Right? Rigid models risk um, they risk oversimplifying reality. Taxonomic graph analysis suggests traits are fluid, contextual, and interconnected. So if the big five was more, they have an ocean here. Then, if new information changes, it's a new ocean, and then a new ocean, and then a new ocean, and so on and so on and so on. That would be more reflective. But that is the pitfall of pretty much all personality traits, pretty much the pitfall of all things that try and contain human beings into 24, 16 MBTIs or 365. If you're trying to contain 8 billion individuals who can go on potentially millions of different journeys based on millions of different things to a simple situation, it's flawed by default. We need to be thinking about this the other way round, not having one system that contains everything, but look at the information that you are presented to from everything to filter it through these other boxes of understanding that you have in order to see what fits and what connects in the moment that you're in, right? Holmes warned Watson never to let theories blind him to facts. Theories are tools, not prisons. Holmes defied Victorian stereotypes, seeing beyond the foreigner or beyond the woman to the individual's true drivers. Deductionists, psychologists, therapists, you know, anyone that is involved in the awareness of information from human beings, you have to stay flexible. It's resisting the temptation to fit people into pre-cut boxes when the evidence, the context, the situation, the reality demands nuance. From Aristotle to Jung and beyond, the goal has always been to sharpen human understanding of others. This modern deductive opportunity, it's the combination of these traditions with science that is iterative, that evolves with the information that you are seeing and you observe and you interact with. There is this constant computational effect with it, and based on those kinds of things, it's fucking tiring, it's exhausting, and it's not easy, and you are wrong, and you have to search more, and you have to keep observing and do more brain work and ask more questions and be more curious, and it's not simple. There isn't an app or an AI service that could get anywhere close to thinking like a human being can about these types of things, right? If you look at things like pattern recognition or contextual interference or contextual inference for that matter, and probabilistic reasoning, they're mirrored in how meta traits are identified. Oh, you guys are saying such sweet things. You, thank you. 100 Days Memory Challenge was an amazing experience. Thanks a lot. You are very welcome. I'm glad you got something out of it. Watch this space as well, because I've got more things coming on that area. Um, what was I saying? Um, it's a bad thing of doing these kind of things without notes. Um, Holmes exemplified modern deduction before it existed. Right? It's the reading of patterns that others missed. It's blending science and psychology and logic and reason and critical thinking and memory and awareness and 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 right. This is why human beings are notoriously terrible for determining relevance. Terrible, right? Back then, his deductions about clients, whether they were uh, liars or victims or villains or whatever else, right? It depended on recognizing subtle trait composites. That's happening again. Oh, look at that! Isn't that fun? Tech issues. They happen to me all the time. Today, like if you look at anybody from an investigator to a coach to a teacher to an AI service to an app, they should be using these same skills to read and understand their clients, their suspects, or their consumers at scale. Each generation refines personality theory because the generations are different, the people are different, the individuals are different, the life is different. This is just the latest frontier. Like it was a phrenology bust that Holmes had. That gave way to psychometrics. The big five might give way to more network-based models. The early results are promising, but replication, as always, is crucial. We, in the consuming and use of this information, must resist overselling. Holmes would test hypotheses with experiments, burning cigar ash or splashing reagents before he drew conclusions. And that's the same thing that we should be doing here. Right, so much of, I mean, even with the 100-Day Memory series, right? Even one of the things that I was explicitly clear on, or attempted to be explicitly clear on, through all of that, is you're only going to get as much out of it as you can by using the material, by challenging it, by testing it, by playing with it. Holmes would rely on preliminary deductions and abductions and inductions, sure, but it's the awareness of corroboration of information before he would ever confront a suspect. We should use these findings as a guide, not as a gospel. They should expand our map. If that was a rain, oh yeah, it's raining. We're in England. Shocker, right? But the terrain itself is still unfolding. Psychology is a detective story, centuries in the making, and each new method is like another clue. The discovery of hidden traits doesn't necessarily abolish the big five. It deepens it, like finding secret rooms, you know, pulling on a book, and the whole thing pops in it. We just need to be changing how we use it. Just because we are aware of something like the big five and what it can do doesn't mean we stop learning in the moment because we've reached an ocean-based understanding. Right? Holmes lived by the principle that truth hides in the overlooked detail. Today, science confirms it. Human personality is richer than our current categories. Holmes used this to solve crimes that baffled Scotland Yard. And that's all it really takes for us, not to try and baffle anyone, but for us to be able to solve things that other people can't. It's just being aware of the data that other people disregard or are not aware of. We can use it to understand people more accurately, whether it's in security, online, therapy, daily lives, whatever it is. And yeah. So if you've got anything out of this, guys, let me know down in the comments section. I'd love to hear from you. This is the live broadcast that's going out tonight. Then they get taken down and the edited pretty version goes up tomorrow. So all of the information, the link to the article included, will be contained in the description box below. But when this goes out tomorrow, not for this live stream now. And yeah, one of the ways that I can get some good feedback that costs you nothing but exercising some energy in your pointer finger is clicking on the subscribe button. This helps me keep bringing these episodes to you, keep sharing this knowledge with you guys, and it's only in the feedback, the critiques, the questions, the have you thought about, or you guys will take this information to places that I will never even see, so I can learn from you guys in return. And with that in mind, I shall love you and leave you, and I will see you again very soon.